when I'm calling. Reveal to me how to earn dollars quick. Show me how to love and commit. Teach me how to throw fresh in a bin. Explain I'm not gay, just need a good dick. I gotta explain shit. I gotta explain shit. I gotta explain shit. Tell me. A, B, C, be my Siri, be my Siri. Fertile, juicy, fertile, juicy.
I'm wearing it in honor of that Palisades that burnt down.
Bonjour, bonjour. Bienvenue à la troisième journée et dernière journée du MAMA 2025. On voit qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont dû sortir hier soir. En tout cas, merci d'être là ce matin. Normalement, on avait prévu de commencer à 10h, mais on s'est dit qu'on allait repousser à 10h30 le vendredi parce qu'on n'était pas sûr d'avoir du monde dans la salle. Donc, voilà. En tout cas, merci d'être là. Nous avons une journée qui est sous l'angle à la fois du droit des créateurs ce matin. Et cet après-midi, nous avons le Live Music Summit qui revient avec deux thématiques particulières. Une sur l'état des lieux du secteur, non pas seulement en France, mais à l'échelle européenne, voire mondiale. Et une deuxième sur l'éco-compatibilité du secteur du live au XXIe siècle. Le tout animé par mon camarade journaliste Gordon Masson du magazine IQ. Mais ce matin, je vais vous laisser entre les mains très experte de Jake, sauf quand il s'agit d'utiliser la petite machine pour la traduction. So Jake, over to you.
Thank you, sir. So I'm an artist manager from the UK, and I'm part of a network of artist managers around the world called the International Music Managers Forum. So we discuss the artist business and how it's developing on a global scale, and we get input from multiple countries. I live in London, very close to the train that goes straight to Brussels, so I tend to get called up and sent to Brussels. We'll be quite Brussels-focused in this conversation, but we're also going to figure out with technology, clearly with the internet is a global thing. In December of last year, I went to a Chatham House Rule meeting near the Houses of Parliament. So Chatham House Rule, as you guys know, is you can say what was said in the meeting, but you can't say who said it. So the participants included OpenAI, it included Rupert Murdoch's company News International, representatives from the creative sector, and then representatives from the UK government, including members of Parliament. And it became very clear across the meeting that the members of Parliament were convinced that technology, and specifically AI, would grow the economy. We need growth. This will grow the economy. And the technologists were like, we can grow the economy. And when they did their introductions, they were from Silicon Valley area. One of the guys, he was like, his family worked for the Bill Gates Foundation, and he'd had a long history of working for various Silicon Valley companies. So they kept expressing their love for creativity and creators. And then they kept saying we can make growth in the economy. It became very apparent during that meeting that the government was keen to support growing the economy through AI, even though no one could explain what that meant. And if that then meant that the property, the virtual property, the intellectual property that had been built by the creators and has tremendous global value would be degraded, that wasn't really a problem. I think that there's a conceptual issue here when we talk about technology. A lot of people will be told, so SACEM, the oldest collection society in the world, a lot of rights that creators have come from France. Those things are quite hard to quantify. You can see them in a bank statement or on song lyrics, but the real value of them is kind of ephemeral, it's emotional. And then there's also a thing with the internet that is very intangible. And it's interesting the way governments appear to value one form of intangible growth and value, but not the other. So we're going to try and explore, not so much, we're not going to say, is there a problem? We're going to explore how do we defend creators? And broadly, the experts we have here today come from the author's side, so the lyricist and the composer, or Lennon and McCartney, not John, Paul, Ringo and George the Beatles, but they understand, and at least two of them are also performers. I'm just going to get them very briefly to introduce themselves. I'll start at the end with you, Jamie.
Hi, everybody. I am a songwriter, and I have been for over 30 years. I write songs for people like Lewis Capaldi and Rag and Bone Man and Calvin Harris and everyone from Carole King to Jennifer Hudson, all sorts. And 3 or 4 years ago, I started a new company called Arc, which has all of these issues in mind, which is deliberately and very specifically a tool to defend and protect every human intellectual property piece of property going forwards for the next 10 to 20, hopefully 30 years to keep us all in business. Because we saw 3 or 4 years ago at the start of the wave that it was a crucial piece, the most crucial piece we could see, because our governments fail us, our AI companies exploit us, and the copyright system as it is needs to be far more robust. Not now, it has been fantastic and it's been an amazing system until now, but going forward it needs an entire reboot, so that's what we decided to do. So I'm here to talk about that today and listen carefully to what everybody has to say.
Bryce.
Hello, I'm Bryce Ohms. I'm an author, and I'm an author. Some are author, composers, and performers. I'm an author, I'm a songwriter. I write lyrics for songs since 30 years too. And I write screenplays for the movies, and I write novels. So as a writer, I'm part of the SACEM, of course. You talked about it. It was the first CMO, 1848. And I'm a member of the board, and I'm the vice president of the board this year. So it's very important to us to be here and to let you know that it's always been a fight. And SACEM started, I don't know if you know about that, with a brawl in a bar where a few songwriters in 1848 were having a glass, and there was a band playing and a singer singing, and then comes the bill, and they said, "Oh, no, we don't pay." So why is that? Why you don't pay? How come? Because you're playing our songs and you don't pay us. And then there was a brawl, and then there was a fight, and then they went to jail, and they sued, and they said, "You stole our songs." And I have to say, we're back to that time. With people stealing our songs and making money out of it without paying us. So you see, it's a circle, it's a long fight. When it comes to disruption, I mean, we're the crash test dummies, you know. Remember, MP3, remember, MP3, peer-to-peer, Napster, Mega Upload, LimeWire, you name it. They were stealing our songs, you know. And then came the streaming, you know. Oh, okay, cool. They just forgot that they had to pay the authors and the composers. Oh, so shit, we didn't found that.
Something happened as well, didn't it, with streaming, that at some point it went from this is terrible to like, oh, we're making loads of money, and now there's dissatisfaction again.
Yeah.
That you've seen that cycle, or SACEM particularly has seen that cycle a number
20 years of fight.
Times. Arjen, who are you?
Hi, I'm Arjen Molema. Thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure always to be in Paris, and especially in such a beautiful place. I come from a background of writing and performing my own songs, so being a performing artist, but I always enjoyed the writing part the most, so I've done some writing after that, separate from performing it. I went on getting more and more into IP law and policy regarding copyright, but especially creators. So at this point, I'm president of CIAM, International Council of Music Creators, whereby we advocate for creators' rights, strong collective management, to make sure, because this all sounds very boring, especially at 10:30 in the morning, I know, but to make sure that the creator's voice gets heard, and that in particular people realize that it's not just about, you know, sometimes the image of lefty, wokey creators, cultural sector being demanding. it's about a bigger issue of fundamental rights, democratic institutions, making sure that freedom of expression is, respected and can evolve. And this is what we're talking about also with AI. And I can talk about this for hours, which I will not do, but we'll get to there later on. So it's for me, it's a relevant issue to have these debates and to talk about it, but from a perspective of the whole society. And you mentioned briefly, we need growth, economic growth in the sector. And I always completely agree with that. And if I look at the numbers, I'm from the Netherlands, if I look at the numbers, we see that the cultural sector and copyright are bigger than the agricultural sector. They have a very small investment from the government, from society, but a very huge return of investment. So I say, let's focus on those numbers, and the growth is there, and creators are there to make sure that it happens, and that voices are being heard. I'll leave it at that for now.
Just pausing there, because it's really important that you identified that this isn't a niche issue for those crazy artistic people. This is about freedom of expression and about individual rights and ownership over the property, the intellectual property of one's mind.
Yeah, it is, and if you allow me to very quickly respond, because we usually focus only on the economic argument, which is a very solid argument, and we have the numbers to back that up. But I don't want to leave out the, I always want to say, philosophical argument that also goes behind that. And what do we want a society to look like? And are we okay with people cannibalizing on our songs for already centuries long? Because what does that mean for a society? And that's also an issue that's very relevant for my organization to discuss on Friday morning at 10:30.
Bryce mentioned used the acronym CMO, which is Collective Management Organization. Adriana, who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? Bon, d'abord en français, merci beaucoup, Mama. Et c'est vraiment un plaisir d'être ici à Paris ce matin. I represent GESAC. GESAC is the Groupement Européen des Sociétés d'Auteurs et Compositeurs. It is an association that was created 35 years ago in Brussels by the European author societies like SACEM and Buma, Stemra, Sky, the Spanish one that I know very well too, and with the only purpose to follow EU legislation on copyright, to influence, of course, EU legislation on copyright, because our members represent more than 1 million creators all over Europe. Therefore, it is important to know what happens, what's going on, and of course, to be able to present the perspective of creators, to present the perspective of collective management, and to try to protect, of course, the best we can, this institution that is les droits d'auteur, that is copyright, that is also collective management, that was born here in Paris more than 200 years ago, and that is a key asset, a key an outil, very, very important for creators to work and to defend their rights collectively, and also to defend not only their economic rights, which of course are a human right, but also the more moral and social perspective of culture and authors' rights that contributes to have a diverse society, and also that contributes to the freedom of creativity and expression. Because also I think it's important to remind that authors' rights were born to break the chains also from the mécénat in the idea of it, and so to free creators from censorship. And I think that today we have to remember that also every day.
You're representing authors, but also you have an understanding, because with the way music has worked, that we've touched on this many times, that SACEM kind of pulled together the early authors' rights, and the Statute of Queen Anne goes back with the copyright and the right to make copies, printing presses. And then on top of that, various other rights have been built. So the average music artist has 4 areas of operation. They have the composition, lyrics and composition. They're a writer. They are a performer, which might then be recorded by a record company. They have live experiences where they will sell tickets. for people to come and see them, and maybe that's for a talk, it doesn't have to be for a show. And then they have their personal brand, so their face on a t-shirt, or they put their signature on a bottle of champagne. So these 4 areas of activity, brand, recording, publishing, and live, the rights, particularly with legal legislation and copyright, have tended to focus on the author's side. And maybe we've seen, since Elvis, mid-50s, we've seen a focus on the performer. And certainly in the negotiations with the streaming companies, I'm going to use Spotify broadly as a default identifier for all the streaming companies. With the negotiations with Spotify, the labels were given most of the power, and the authors, represented by their publishers and the collective management organizations, you guys were in the front line, but you had a very weak voice relative. Is there a political power that the performers bring, so that a record label can say, hey, I've got Justin Timberlake and Taylor Swift and they're going to make an appearance, and you guys say, I've got Ariane and Jamie who wrote these amazing things that are making you cry, and they're less sexy to the political process. Have we failed as an industry to promote the author's voice in the previous negotiations with digital since Napster in 1999?
Well, that's a very comprehensive view of the situation, no, like historically, I will say. Well, authors' rights are, as you say, are at the basis, no, of the whole building, let's say, of music industry, because they are really at the beginning of the process, which is the creativity. When you are a composer, you need, of course, to get help and supported in your development as a profession, as an artist, and so you need, for instance, you need publishers, and then when the industry started to become more sophisticated, you have record companies, labels. So I mean, today we have this complex legal framework, I will say, and also this very diverse industry. And at the very core of it, you still have the author, and you still have collective management, because collective management, as I said, it was invented more than 200 years ago, but it is still a very important tool to represent and to defend the rights of creators. So maybe in this like political or more marketing battle that you were saying, okay, it's true that creators are maybe left a little bit in the back and they're not so visible as artists, but I think that I will say, I don't agree so much with you with the fact that I think that collective management and creators are very influential at the end. And for instance, with this digital single market directive that we know is the last one that we fight in Brussels for, I think that collective management organizations did very well in really succeeding in the outcome of this Article 17, and also with the 2014 directive for collective management, the way that the market for digital was at the end organized with this European licensing agreements, in which you have both sides. You have the labels and you have the creators side. I mean, I'm not so pessimistic. I think that maybe we are more discreet, but it is very important, and the play that collective management organizations play, the role they play in this political debate, at the end is taken into consideration, because I think we are able to provide solutions that are useful for everyone.
And then there's people like you in Brussels, full-time, and your predecessors fighting this fight and aware of the complexities of it.
Yes.
Ariane.
Yeah, I mean, if your question basically was like, are featured and performing artists easier to lobby with than songwriters? If it's black and white, then the answer is yes, I'm afraid so. Even with Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA, who's now president of CSAC, people mostly know him from being of ABBA, not necessarily for writing the songs, unfortunately. Yeah. So what we do and what I do in my country, for instance, is that we try more and more to tie those two together. So if we lobby, we bring one songwriter, one artist that have worked together. So people realize, oh, this is a big name, but there's somebody behind it that actually wrote the songs that we're all singing along to. It is a very difficult challenge to get those two connected. On the same hand, if you look at the bigger scale, you can also see that with the debate about labels versus publishers, you can mainly see that there's more to gain for labels because the return of investment is bigger, because usually that's still 80-20 deals, so the 80% for the label, there's more money to win, so they put more lobbying efforts into that, and it creates a division within the publisher department, majors versus indies, which is not helping necessarily, I think, creators.
Just underlining that point, so for example with Spotify, if you're an investor and you own both a label and a publisher, money comes from the DSP, the digital service platform, Spotify, to you. If more of the money goes to you as the record label and less to you as the publisher, the author has greater rights against the publisher than the performer has against the record label. So the record labels can retain a larger share, and so the composers are stronger and the performers are weaker. But generally, the performers have led the conversation on how we develop in digital. Jamie, just before you jump in, we've also been hearing here of this history of how we've built layer upon layer of each time the technology evolves, we bring in maybe a new piece of legislation. We heard about Article 17, which was a recent copyright process in Brussels. Yeah. So we're building up layer and layer to react to these paradigm shifts. Is it appropriate to just keep building another layer at this point?
No. No, it's a mess. And the reason it's a mess is that we keep reacting to what Sir Lucian Grange does. He sets the tone every time. He jumped in as a record label and also runs the publishing company and decided...
He's Universal.
So the boss of, I'm sure most of you know Lucian Grange, runs Universal Music on both sides. He's a businessman. And like most good businessmen, he's a shark, and he finds. By the way, I'm very respectful in that. I think he's amazing at what he's done, and he's built Universal into $55 billion company by precursing and doing deals without consulting the publishers properly and representing the record label first. So that's why they jumped in, and as you said, I think upstairs, you guys do this, you guys have got this, record labels have got this, and then the publishers don't really have a foothold in that conversation, because if you don't have leverage, you're not at the table. So with this in mind, you cannot afford to be reactionary when it comes to this legislation anymore. It has to be at the forefront, and it has to be more forward thinking in the way we handle these situations, because I think just because I have enormous respect for SASAM as a company and as an organization, because I think they've been doing it for longest. They're doing it better than most people. But the reality is, if the leverage sits very firmly in the record company's corner, you're not at the table to have the conversation. I did actually ask Sylvie last week, where's the leverage for SASM, for ASCAP? If you're not at the beginning of the deals being done. Again, we find out in the press, and we precursed this a year ago, you need to be at that table when it comes to Suno, when it comes to AI. It cannot be Lucian and the major record labels negotiating deals on behalf of everybody in California. But, that's what he does. He's like, where's the money?
Solution?
Go over there. Monopolies and mergers, take away the rights, ask him not to run both companies, ask him, step in and say, publishing needs to be separated from records.
We kind of accept this split between the labels and the publishers, and I was throwing in the live industry and then the branding side of it. The artist business is split into 4 silos.
Well, sorry, solution, I just want to go back to a second. The train of thought, I don't think sits with record labels or publishers in the future. And I think we were talking about this upstairs. If you are a modern creator, and frankly, I'm in my 50s now, there are kids who are 20 years old who are going to come up with a solution for us, thank goodness, so I don't have to. But the reality is decentralization. It's not centralization. It's not trying to be, a tiny little voice at a big table or swimming with the sharks. You actually have to go and create your own pool.
Would SaaS then be an example of centralization?
I think the overall model is centralized. But what I think, it's not me saying it's coming anyway. We will each have an AI bot that will go and trade our IP with other AI bots, whatever there is. We employ some of the biggest brains I've ever been in the room with to go and tell, and they say, guys, the way the model works now is just not going to be the way the model works in 10 years' time.
If decentralized is the Wild West in the context of California, is it every man for themselves?
That is what's coming.
Do you like that? Do you think that's
a
solution?
I don't think the other solution is a solution, because I don't think copyright, the way it sits now, is going to work in that world. With an enormous amount of exploitation, if people exploit your work and then you have to ask them for money for it, you've lost already. If you're in a position to have ownership of what it is that you have created and thought of, and then do a deal and then release it into the world, then you're in a much stronger position. But I think everything is reactive at the moment, and it's very much you just said at the very beginning, the conversation was, the AI companies came and said it's good, growth is good for everybody. What a load of shit that is. I mean, we all know it's shit, and we can all sense it's shit, but we're not doing anything about it. The reality is we have to separate ourselves from that process and say, as human beings, as creative individuals, in order to protect your own rights, you have to establish what your rights are and then trade on them to have a future.
Adriana, Jamie's talking about individual rights and protecting them. Can you individually create new rights and ownership and not be trampled by the larger world?
I don't think so. I think that Jamie introduced a very important element to discuss, but I will differentiate. I think that you mentioned one issue that we need to put into the equation, and it's really, it is what it's the market is a tendency in the market for a few years already, which is concentration. We have concentration in a few hands. Of course, we have it in the AI market because we have a few global companies, most of them coming from the US and China, and this is, maybe we can talk about this later. And making really pressuring European institutions and European policymakers in order to change the legislation on their benefit. But also we have concentration everywhere. We have also concentration in the music field, in the audiovisual field, and this is also limiting the opportunities of small publishers, individual creators. So for me, it's true that I've been working in collective management almost all my life, but I think that collective management is a huge, very good, there's nothing better that has been invented so far to defend authors' rights. And most CMOs are non-for-profit organizations that belong to creators. And this today, in this, more than ultra-liberal world in which we are living, it's becoming quite a rare thing. So we need to cherish that, and we need to protect it also from this power that concentrated actors have in any market. And for that, we need more politics, and we need more political courage, and we need more competition authorities also to play also the role. And I think that we've seen, for instance, in the US, I studied in the US many years ago, and antitrust legislation comes from the US, and we have all these cases from the beginning of the 20th century that are landmark for competition legislation. And where is the antitrust authorities? What are they doing today in the US? Nothing. So I think this is an important element that is not only copyright, it's also what is affecting also the market. And market concentration is a very important issue, and for authors, of course, and cultural diversity, and small agents, companies, medium and small-sized companies all over Europe. So that's what I wanted to say.
Right. Yes, thank you, Adriana. And there's two sides to that coin, and The first side makes me very disappointed, and the second side makes me worried. Why am I disappointed? As many people I am, because we went with Adriana, we went with Gadi Oron and Björn Ulvaeus from Björn. We went to the European Parliament, and we were received by President Roberta Metsola. And she said, I don't understand. How come you don't sit with those people at the table and just make deals? And we said, because they don't want, you know? So I'm very disappointed that those very smart guys from the tech companies are very good at disrupting, but they're not that good at making deals. Because if they were, they will understand that CMOs, like SACEM, are facilitators for them. You know, we have millions of songs. Oh, sorry, they don't understand that. Quality data. This they will understand. We have millions of that. We know how to make deals. We have listens with everywhere. We can make lower cost for them because we have all those deals. We can lower their cost. We have access to, and the law. And I'm not sure they understand law that much in the tech schools, you know. But we can be facilitators for them, and they will have at one point to sit at the table with us because we're the best way for them and the simplest and the cheapest way to make great deals. This is about money. And now the other part of the coin that make me worried is about, we're artists here. What is art about? What is culture about? And you talked about that, you know. It's about sharing, you know, emotions. It's the beginning of empathy. It's sharing and receiving emotions. It's telling stories. It's my brain, it's my gut, it's my blood, you know, that I put in songs. And this is not me, it's Nick Drake, you know, saying that. You know, so
if an alien observed this conversation, they'd be hearing about the artificial intelligence taking more control of synthetic intelligence and artificial intelligence and process and admin, which would free humanity to have more capacity for this emotional intelligence that you're talking about, this creativity and beauty. And therefore, it would sound like there would be a premium on good human creativity, that we should be growing in value at this time. And yet the general conversation is that we're going to be discarded. Ariane, with the AI companies, there's a lot of talking at the moment about training, so that they take a bunch of songs and the AI listens to it and it learns the basic skill sets or output of that.
Don't use the word learning, please, because that
right.
To me that's like a human aspect. You have machine learning, which is different. Learning is still, and there's a difference. But sorry.
No, good, go for it. So to expand on that you listening to who's your favorite artist?
Let's say I was just listening to Michael Kiwanuka on the way here.
Right. So you listening to him is inspirational to you, whereas a machine listening to him, it's just copying it, and it's trying to find threads to copy. So this analogy that we sometimes hear of Ed Sheeran being inspired by Marvin Gaye or a machine listening to Marvin Gaye is a very false comparison.
It is, I believe, yeah. Yeah, it's about, of course, I mean, learning is not copying. So when a machine listens to it, it also directly copies bits of it. Now we're getting into the weeds of IP law, which makes it maybe complicated, but there is a certain aspect of copying that machines do, which they say is learning. But for me, it's even more about the skill. If I learn something, if I listen to Michael Kiwanuka and I learn something from that, it's a certain vibe or emotion or thing, and I don't one-on-one copy that. If I do, I get accused of plagiarism. So I don't copy one-on-one, I get inspired, and then you're getting into, but is an AI model maybe inspired by different things? Well, no, it's not, because that's still a human thing. We haven't biologically determined what that is, but there is a difference, and it's usually, for me, it's about the scale, because if an AI model does it, it can immediately do it like a gazillion times a day, where a human being cannot do that. So we need to be very clear in that language and in that difference between learning learning being inspired by and actually human learning.
We're looking at creators reclaiming the narrative. One of the things we've sort of covered is that maybe the different stakeholders within the music industry need to come together around the creators, so the authors and the performers, and that we've been split perhaps on negotiations with Spotify and others, that we need to come together on our side, not just throw rocks over to the other side. Collective management seems to be the right home for that, because it satisfies Jamie in that we're all individuals, we're not owned, we're lending them our rights and their support, we have votes, and it's a not-for-profit. So collective management seems to be really important, and maybe we've undervalued that with lots of people trying to pull out and do direct deals and licensing. And then we're also starting to get into the fundamentals of the difference between what humans do, inspiration, and what machines do, and this false comparison between them. Right?
Yeah, and you can see us as a hub first.
Sorry, say again?
You can see us as a hub first, and also as a collective of creators. So
with no barrier based on profitability or price or quality, it's everyone's welcome, so long as they meet a certain threshold of how many songs you wrote or were published or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
It's a low bar in a positive way. Jamie.
I think that we're all well-intentioned but naive. Just all of us.
This is the Friday morning talking, Jamie. Come on.
There are hundreds of billions of dollars at stake, and the politicians have cozied up to the AI companies for now in such a strong way. I'm by the way, again, collective rights management and protection is. I'm saying that has always been and historically has been fantastic, and it's crucial to what we are. I wouldn't have earned a living out of it. I'm very grateful for it. What I'm saying is there has to be a drastic reimagining of how that happens. Like sex, like air, and money, intellectual property is only important when you stop getting it. Right? Then it becomes pretty fucking important. You're not breathing. You're not whatever else. And the only way to do that is to have some sort of control over the IP before it gets into the hands of the AI companies that they can learn from. So my opinion is that it needs to be a much more active rather than a reactive approach to how you collectively protect your individual IP. And the only way I say that is that's what the company that we built is based around. But I'm not here to talk about my company. I'm here to say that just in principle, what I think is going to happen for the next 10 to 20 years is a reimagining of how people protect what they begin with.
When we first started
before
speaking,
it's exploited.
Adriana was making a fist as she was talking, and Bryce had talked about SASM coming from effectively a punch-up. Yeah. So think
and
for
we're
a moment,
back in it, and we're back in the punch-up.
Think about what you mean about how we can protect our rights. Adriana.
I don't even remember. There's so many things.
So do we currently have licensing?
Yes.
So permissions going from a rights holder to a user. A permission, these are the terms, this is the...
Well, first,
do
let's focus on
the licensing in place, or do we need to invent something completely new?
No, we don't need to invent the wheel, because CMOs are there for licensing, and Brice, he just mentioned that we had this meeting with the European Parliament's president, and she couldn't believe that we were not able to issue those licenses. So what I can say is that European author societies, since already at least 2 years ago, when all this debate really started to be more and more intense, they exercise this is a very technical issue because we have this legislation, but they exercise what we call opt-out from this Article 4 of the directive. That means that they manifested that their members were retaining their rights, and they were not giving up their rights for these training activities for AI companies. So, therefore, AI companies needed to get a license from creators. This was like the first step that you needed, according to our legislation today in Europe, that you needed to do as a creator in order to clarify the situation and say, hey, I don't agree with this training without my authorization. And I will only speak on economic rights, because if we jump into the moral rights, then I mean that's that's another issue. So that's the first step. Second, they offer themselves to provide licenses to all these AI companies, and we even have some examples. For instance, the German
that
society.
prevents the historical thing that tech companies have said, "Oh, we can't speak to the music people; they won't license us."
So. Exactly. So they cannot say, "Oh, we don't know who to address." No, the petition, because there's no one on the other side. No, on the other side you have collective management organizations who have already said we are here for promoting an AI, generative AI market in Europe, because we've always been a tool for licensing, and we have these tariffs and we have these licenses, and we are happy to sit with you and negotiate.
A market, a buyer and a seller.
Yeah, exactly. So there is no willingness. That's
Because
there's no leverage.
The
There is no willingness.
Sorry, the training discussion
Yeah.
is AI company goes and listens to 10 million tracks. They listen to all of YouTube. all
You
of
do it
Spotify.
again. You say listens to, but yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's valid.
Yeah.
In future, once they've
Yeah.
captured and trained their models on most of the existing music, do they need to keep coming back to us for licenses?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what you see is we are focused very much on the training and input section, because that's a very valid thing to talk about and to get to a stage where we get licenses for that. But what we must realize that I think in the last couple of 4 or 5 months, we've had the Velvet Sundown on Spotify. You've seen a variety of fake artists coming up on streaming platforms. I think around 30% now is AI-generated content that is directly competing with human-created content. So the concern is it's already difficult enough, and we've been talking about streaming actually making money, which is on a global scale the case, but not for every creator, not for every artist. So it's already very difficult to get a fair remuneration out of streaming. If you add to that mix generated stuff that's out there, that's actually chipping away at the income that's being distributed, it makes it even more difficult. So basically, you're competing with free, which is never a good market principle. That has never worked, at least not for us. Probably for the other side. So yes, we do need to talk about what happens also on the other side. We need to talk about licensing the output. I know GEMA, for instance, another collecting society, is working on that. I know multiple societies are working on that. But that's if we don't level that playing field. And I don't know if we have the leverage. That's a valid question, Jamie. I don't know if we have the leverage for that. But it's a very valid question, because that's where I see even a bigger threat. And to go back, like, do you need renewed licenses whenever they have trained? Because that was also partly your question, right? I think we do. It's a technical question, because they have consumed all training data and they will keep on using that, so you can get a recurring license for that, I would say, as an IP lawyer, but I'm partially leaning towards one side of the discussion, of course. But
some of the AI companies have said that they need less than 850,000 tracks to train their model to then understand an input, like make me a ska track from 1950s Jamaica, make me a jazz track from 1990s Paris. That it's a very small data set that they actually need to then extrapolate to create synthetic tracks that don't infringe on copyright, that aren't an obvious rip-off of the Beatles or something like that. So it's quite possible that in their future business models, these AI companies think they can have a one-and-done training license and then not need to come back to us, which is then your point about that reduces the market. Therefore, Jamie, at the point where, let's say we skip forward to a disastrous future, there's all this back catalogue that people are listening to, that because the price on streaming of listening to old music is zero once you've paid the subscription, you can listen to new or old. So young people are listening to more and more old music. The market share for new music is already reduced. It reduces further because of the generative music. What's the opportunity for creators to make money in a future paradigm where their market share is reduced?
Well, I mean, Universal also already makes, what, 85% of its money on heritage anyway, right? So, and that's done and dusted. And that's okay, because they've already earned a fortune out of it. Good for them. Cars, homes, everything. But going forward, for the people creating going forward, what you said, Bryce, it was crucial, and we all agree on it. The value is, it's not B2B. Sorry, it's B2C. So me coming up with a song or a lyric, or you guys coming up with something that touches other human beings is the only currency. That's all we have. That's the value. So protecting that is what I'm saying. So if that, you know, because a hit record is still ethereal, it's still ephemeral, as you said. How do we know what happens? It's a moment in time where a human being has expressed a human emotion that is universal and accepted as a slightly an original thought, a genetic mutation with a new lyric and new melody, and somehow it's been created or presented differently at a moment in time which everybody somehow connects with and goes, I can buy myself flowers. Okay, great, I get that. Thank you very much. Terribly sung. Sorry, it's Friday morning. But as long as there is that between human beings, there will be a means to trade off of it. What I'm saying is, what's done is done. So copyright has worked for now. Reimagine it, and going forward, original thought, human original thought, is still going to be the lifeblood that AI companies trade off if they can and when they get it.
When you say reimagine it, I think what I'm hearing is we have the author's rights, the lyrics and the composition, and you're talking much more about the value of, let's say, Beethoven 200 years ago. Hold on. Beethoven's Ninth, that he would sit on the stage, and he was deaf at the point where the Ninth came out, and he would watch the audience because he couldn't really, he'd watch the orchestra, and then he didn't know what the reaction was, and rapturous applause, so they had to turn him around so he could see that the audience was delighted. So the audience were happy to see Beethoven there. And so his value wasn't just in this beautiful composition, it was actually him as a person and an engaging and a character that they... So more of that brand side that someone like Rihanna has done brilliantly on with cosmetics and apparel, that she's a billionaire making more money from other areas than she is from the music. So to an extent, I know you didn't say it this way, and it's probably a harsh reading of it, but you're sort of saying like maybe the music is a loss leader and that you monetize the relationship. You're saying B2C, business to consumer, not B2B. So instead of the author selling to a publishing company or a radio station, they're going direct to the consumer. And therefore we would need to strengthen the protections around their name, their image, their likeness, their voice, which also the AI agents are coming at. So maybe we need to align much more with Hollywood and visual artists, not just bring together the authors and performers, but all creators.
All IP creators, not just in music or even the creative arts, but in medicine, research. I just think that, yeah, if there is a way to stop people from receiving it for free and doing the trade beforehand, creating the sync, you know, whether it's your AI bot talking to somebody else's AI bot, the ability to ring fence it first and decide yourself who gets to listen to it, who gets to collaborate with you on whatever it is you're doing, or, as you said, exploit your image as a result of that, or whatever it is that you're trading. Unless you have leverage, you have no way of earning a living. And leverage would be
fans?
No, leverage would be ownership. I think ownership is the crucial piece we're missing going forward. Ownership, and establishing ownership allows you to then say, this piece is mine.
Which would then bring
Which means you go, you can't listen to this, you can't trade on it, you can't do anything unless you ask me directly.
If
I'm
you
not
guys
talking about
have
the
questions,
politics of
we'll
it.
come to them in a moment. I'm just going to throw a horrible question at Adriana. The European Union, if a box comes in from China, is landed at Rotterdam, we can check it, we can inspect it, we can decide what taxes, etc. apply. With stuff happening online, with people using AI on their phones, it's much harder to control the jurisdiction, the territory of Europe. What happens if AI companies are training, American AI companies are listening to European repertoire, they're listening to Kraftwerk, they're not listening, they're copying Kraftwerk in Japan to train their model? What happens with European legislation to protect Kraftwerk?
That's one of the main problems we have in these moments. Well, taking from Jamie's, I think that ownership is clear. ownership belongs to creators, first of all. But I agree that we are in a situation of legal uncertainty, because in the US we have all this fair use doctrine that has to develop, and in the US, in the EU, we have this legislation that creators are exercising their rights based on this legislation, but has a lot of points that need to be reinforced and clarified. And one of them is this one. So we've been asking as GESAC to clarify this situation with the meaning that if you are a company, AI company that is based in the US or in China or wherever you want to be, you've been doing all these training activities based on copyright products. You have not asked for an authorization, préalable, and you want to enter the European market. Our AI Act, our AI regulation, which is pioneer worldwide. We are the first region in the world who has been legislating on this. Clearly states that no matter where you've been doing the training, if you enter the EU market, you need to respect copyright legislation. So what we are asking the European authorities is to reinforce, because this is mentioned in this recital, and the AI Act is a very transversal legislation. It's really like the basis to start to regulate the artificial intelligence market. And now we need a targeted legislation for copyright and the generative AI market it is existing already and it's going to evolve. And for that, so first of all, we are asking for this specific legislation in order to clarify, among other things, that if you want to operate in the EU market, you have to play by the rules of the European market. And one of these is respect of copyright and respect of authors. So we think that we need to clarify and reinforce this point, because AI companies, one of the arguments that they present when they don't want to sit with us is, I'm sorry, but I trained this in Trinidad, Tobago, or wherever, and so I am fine to the legislation of that country. Yes, well, maybe, but you are not okay with the legislation of the country in which you want to sell your products. And this is Spain or France or Germany, and you need to respect copyright. And today, this is not sufficiently clear.
Have you guys had enough coffee that you want to ask some questions? Nope. Right.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you, because it's just very interesting and reassuring to listen to you talk about all of this. I'm an artist developing my project right now, and I have come here, as you said, well-attentioned, but a bit naive as well, so I apologize if this question seems a bit stupid, but yes. Thank you, but...
There's some stupid answers, but no.
In this industry that is evolving, I still seem to hear in many conversations that the power is still in the hands of people that obviously want to make business and money, which is the way the top of this industry seems to work. You're talking about how ownership belongs to creators, and that's how it should start, and I agree. But so my question is, if the ownership should belong to me, and I'm trying my best as I'm developing my project to keep it that way, honestly, how can I protect myself in front of this industry and as I keep on
Which country are you based in?
France.
So are you a member of ADAMI?
Yes.
And SACEM?
Yes.
Good. So the next step is to make sure you go and attend regularly and speak to them and show up, because they need the widest footprint and understanding within the community so that you can share that with other creators. That's step number one. Any other tips?
That's what we do.
Yeah, if I may add, because you're also asking, I think, between the balance of doing things yourself and keeping full control 100%, and looking for a team whereby you give away a little bit of power. And that's a difficult balance. There's no answer that says you need this or need that. It depends on what you want with your career. But the main thing that goes behind that, and that I always talk to my members of my Songwriter Society in the Netherlands about, is make sure that whatever deal you make is a good deal. So always make sure that you know what's in the deal and you have a good lawyer look at that. And it all comes down to certain terms, periods in which you sign away, and you can try, making arrangements and making deals with publishers, managers, labels, bookers, whatever. But make sure that you understand what's in the deal. And I think most of the societies and associations that you're already signed up with can help with that. But that's a very, very important aspect that a lot of people, young artists, underestimate.
Right.
Yeah, and this is from the business side. And from the artistic side, I would say, be yourself. Be human. Be an artist. Be better than AI. Because we were talking with Jamie just before, as songwriters, what makes a hit? So it could be curiosity. So, listen to that band, it's all AI, and millions of people will listen to that. So curiosity, so it's basically music porn, don't know. Or you can have a hit because you touch someone. Because what you say, what you sing, touch them at that moment. It's something that I can feel and I can share. And this is basically love. So as Jamie was saying, it's not B2B, it's B2C or B2B2C, but at the end it's the C that decides. And it's human responding to human artists sharing and emotions.
Unfortunately,
be yourself.
We have 5 more minutes because that was the perfect note to end on. I'm going to ruin it now. A thing that drives me mad with artists is their friends and family, they meet them at Christmas and someone says, I'm becoming a lawyer. Oh, I've got my degree. Oh, I've got my first job as a doctor. What are you doing? How's your career going as a singer-songwriter? So the artists tend to sign publishing deals or label deals so that they can validate themselves. Oh, I've signed a deal. Oh, you have a manager. Oh, you've signed a deal. So they're constantly signing bits of paper to give themselves a feeling that they're moving forward. And this thing that Jamie and Bryce are talking about with building engagement with your audience, and that's where the truth is, that's where the value is. And at that point where you've really cracked that and really expressed yourself, then all of the industry will come running after you and the lawyer will be pushing those people away. Make sure going forward with your legal agreements that you think of name, image, likeness, voice, the things that the AI can extract from you that an artist like Rihanna has made so much value from, that are not just the areas covered by Adami and Sassem. I think there was another question here. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. I'm sorry.
No, and think also that you have a long career. So look forward and don't. I think when you are young and you get a first agreement, publishing agreement, I've seen many young artists and creators maybe giving away too much on their first agreement. So try to think that you're young, you have a long career ahead of you, and you need those rights to come back to you all your life.
Yeah, hi. I'm Brazilian, but I live in France. I developed my career here, and I've been here for 20 years now. Well, first of all, when I was a kid, because I'm not that young, I'm 48 years old, I remember that when we talked about AI, we talked about something that would be magic and that would think by itself. We would never think back then that AI would be based on what existed already. And what you said, Arian, earlier on, I think it's very precise. They don't listen to music. They don't think. It's not even artificial intelligence because it doesn't think. It just uses data to create data based on algorithms. That's not thinking. So we really have to think about the words we use to elaborate our thinking because it's essentially political.
That's a great point, and where we're looking for solid takeaways, the earlier point here that Arya made about inspiration versus just data training, and what you're saying is it's not actually it's not what we were promised as artificial intelligence. They kind of changed the goalpost. This is large language models. It's not a step forward yet to the singularity or any great. So we need to find, not just come together collectively, retain our rights, start from the grassroots up, build a massive movement, and then also with your point, with the territoriality, if we do good work in Europe with your network, we really need creators in other areas of the world to point in their territory towards Europe and say, we want that here, so that we can spread this good practice. But then we also need to have the language under control, which is your point of what we're against.
And ethics, and ethics
AI.
too, because it's essentially political. And even us as musicians, we like to say that we don't like artificial intelligence because it's in direct concurrence with what we do. But once we have to do like design stuff, we jump right into it. We go into, like designing artificial intelligence stuff to do our social media. So we have to think politically about all that. And well, that's what I had to say.
Jamie, language for defending.
I've got two disappointing things to tell you. Artificial Intelligence News this morning posted that language models are now learning from their own. It's closed circuit learning, so it's become AGI.
And it's what makes like...
so it is generating its own
it's
closed loop. It literally started this week, so that's one. Two, I would just to your point a second ago, when you said what you said, good luck. I really hope the music is great. Everything these guys said is 100% accurate. Again, I'm really loath to promote what we're doing, but there will be soon solutions, I think, on top of what's happening there, which will allow you to, shall we say, create what you do, share it safely, and get human responses before you then release it into the AI universe. So I would just say that I'm not a total, I'm not totally dystopian. What I think is you're right, because machines will talk to themselves.
Yeah,
they're going to actually
already
end up,
do it, but
they also create
the mediocrity that it brings on,
Sorry,
like the yellowing.
We're out of time.
Sorry.
If you can have the last word.
Cheese.
on the power of creators standing up for themselves and really defining, it's what you've already said before, is this theme of inspiration and the beauty, and Bryce was on that as well, that we maybe need to double down on that and not just the economic argument, that we need to talk, you open by talking about human rights, civil rights, freedom of expression, that maybe we're missing the bigger picture when we get down in the minutiae.
Maybe I'll just end with adding another container term like cultural diversity into that mix, because what we're losing out on is specific subcultures, niche cultures, small music scenes that are completely being moved away in all aspects that we've talked about: streaming, the power of the majors, AI, and that's another one of those container terms that I think are very relevant if you want to keep on doing what we're doing and respecting human cultural art.
Thank you all. Thanks very much.
Amen.